Let's break the chain of corruption.
So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today we have a very interesting topic to talk about. And I am here really enjoying my vacation next to the ocean and trying to explain to you about all these corruption schemes that I was involved in, that I have done all over my life for me to actually retire early and enjoy my vacation outside in an offshore land where no one can reach my money and no one can touch me. And this is exactly what fraudsters they do. Millions of them. They say the amount of money that was hidden from the authority in 2019, more than 7.6 trillion. All these guys who are corrupted, who are fraudsters, they were able to actually go take all their money, run away, open offshore accounts, go open shell companies and move their money around. They say only last year, the amount of money that these taxpayers they didn't pay, accounting for more than 900 billion only. So when we are speaking about this economy, the issues related to corruption, and we want to understand exactly what's happening in the world we are living in, we can see exactly the schemes that are happening around us. And the schemes are very interesting. Why? Because when we are speaking about corruption, it starts, like you saw in the video, with a very simple principle. The principle is very simple. One day I told my son, go and get me chocolate ice cream. Then my son, he told me, don't you remember your wife said, which is his mom said, that actually, you should not eat chocolate ice cream because it's bad for you. So he said, should I tell my mom? I said, no. Go get me my chocolate ice cream and go get me my chocolate cake and get on the way one ice cream for you. So he said, okay, I will do it. So this is the meaning of corruption. When we grow up in society, in community, where we can understand that if I benefit you and you benefit me, this is okay, this is acceptable, it's not considered as corruption. Or when we consider that if we push someone else to do corruption or someone else to do fraud and we benefit from it, I am not really guilty of this act. And who did stuff like that? Look what happened in Wells Fargo. The CEO of Wells Fargo, he created culture inside Wells Fargo where we need to achieve the goals, we need to make money. And we forgot completely about what rules we need to follow, or should we be in compliance or not. It's all about getting more customers. And because the CEO of Wells Fargo implemented this culture where we need to get more, we need to achieve the targets, all the employees, they thought, okay, I have two options. I will lose my job or I achieve the target. So what I'm going to do, much better to achieve the target. Let me call my sister and make her open a bank account. And at the end, when we discover what happened in Wells Fargo, we discover that more than 5,000 employees involved in fraud. And at the end, the CEO of Wells Fargo, he made more than 150 million in bonuses because of these results that they were actually based on fraud. So when we need to understand the concept of corruption, sometimes it's hard for us to understand, because once inside the organization, they create that culture of corruption, they say culture can eat strategy for breakfast. So wherever you implement from internal controls or procedures, they are not going to work because the whole culture is corrupt. And we can see it massively in so many organizations like Wirecard or all these other organizations where it's actually the issue is with the culture, not with the system that we have in place. So what will happen usually? They say always corruption will start from the top. The meaning the organizations who is corrupted at the top, it's all about the individuals who got power. So they say, yeah, so the meaning when someone will have the power, he will be corrupted. They say, no, no, no. Power doesn't corrupt individuals. Individuals, they corrupt the power. Do you remember the story of Julius Caesar? So Julius Caesar, when he was appointed to be the consul of Rome, and he was the consul, what's the meaning in the consul? At that time, they don't have something called emperor or the ruler. They don't have that concept. They have the Senate and they have the consular. The consular is the highest level available there to coordinate between all of them. So when they appointed him to be the consular, and he was trying to get the job of his friend go through. So in that way, some of his friends, they need new regulations. Some of his friends, they need allocation for their staff. The Senate, they said, no, we don't accept that. This is not acceptable. So he said, what can I do? Because these guys who elected me to be in power, if I don't serve them and give them whatever they want, they are not going to elect me next time. So he said, it's easy. What I will do, he sent street gangs to the houses of the senates. And he told them, listen, you next time vote for whatever I say, or you are not going to live next time. So next time, when he said, we have new regulations for this stuff, we have a new allocation, everyone agree? Everyone said, yes, agree. So now he understood that he can use power to corrupt. And this is exactly what happened inside the organizations. The individuals who are in charge, they can use the power to corrupt the managers. They can use the power to corrupt the staff. But we need to understand this concept of corruption, the concept of someone manipulating someone else. Is it because these guys are evil, or do they believe that it's actually okay for them to do that? They did a study related to honesty, and this is called the dishonesty project. So the study was interesting. Why? Because in this study, they selected college students, and they give them an exam for 20 questions. And they told them very simply, what you need to do, you need to answer these questions. But we are not going to look at your result. After you finish, you take the sheet of paper and you shred it. Very nice. You shred it. And then you are going to come. We will tell you the correct answers, and later you will tell us which one of them you answer correctly. You need to be honest. So they said, okay, easy. So students, they went, they answered the questions, they shred their answers, and then they came and they selected how many answers correctly. But actually, the machine was not shredding the papers. They were only shredding the edges of the paper. So then the researchers, they discovered that 80% of the guys who are actually saying that they answer 8 questions, they said actually in reality they answer 9 questions. So 80% of them cheated a little bit, only with 1 or 2 additional questions. They say they answer correctly. So they say in that way, most of us in situation of corruption, we will cheat a little bit. We will accept a small gift. We will do a small favor. We are not gonna go hire your cousin to work for our organization, but we will recommend your cousin to the HR manager. So we cheat a little bit. But they discovered 10% they didn't cheat at all. What about the rest 10%? Well, these guys, they answer 5 correctly and they say 20 answered correctly. They cheated a lot. And unfortunately, what will happen inside our organization, we have these 3 groups. The small group that they will never cheat, which is good. These are the groups who are honest. You need to keep them. And you have the group inside your organization that they are going to cheat no matter what. Wherever you do, you have conflict of interest policy, you have anti-corruption policy, you have fraud policy, you have all the controls and risk management. They are going to find a way and they are going to do corruption and fraud. And we have the third kind, which is representing 80%, most of your staff. They are going to look at the circumstances, look at the culture and cheat a little bit. So what we need to do, we need to ensure that we have the proper culture inside the organization, plus the internal controls and risk management to control the 80%. Because the 10%, if they are going to cheat, we'll catch them at the end. But we can't focus all our focus on them. We need to focus on these 80%, because if the culture is corrupted inside your organization, everything is gone. So based on the ACFE anti-fraud playbook, they say we need to look at fraud triangle. This is the main reason why someone is doing fraud. It's because of the pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. But they mention how can we actually fight is not enough for us to defend the organization by ensuring that we eliminate the opportunities and create the proper culture and reduce the pressure. We need to have a culture of integrity. So we need to make sure inside the organization we have the proper structure To ensure inside the organization, we have authority and responsibility and accountability. So everyone is actually at the end of the day responsible for the act of his department, for his acts. He's supervising the staff, and he is actually having the authority to take the proper action. Without that, without having that proper hierarchy, without having accountability, nothing can happen. This is number one step in fighting corruption. At the same time, we need to understand what are the different types of corruption. So when we are speaking about corruptions, we have different types. We have something called conflict of interest, which is you are going and hiring your cousin to work inside the organization. That's conflict of interest. Or you are getting your firm as a vendor for your organization. Or it can be bribery. It can be two types of bribery. It can be commercial bribery, which is you are bribing someone in business, or it can be official bribery. You are bribing someone in government. Or it can be illegal gratuity. What's the meaning illegal gratuity? The meaning you are giving tip to someone working in government, which is not a good idea. You should not go and give a tip to someone working in government. That's completely not acceptable. In businesses, yes, sometimes we give tips, but giving tip to someone working in government is completely not allowed. They are doing their job. They need to actually get their salary, and they should not take any tip from any of us. And finally, economic extortion. What's the meaning of economic extortion? You are going and telling someone, even they have all the right to be listed as a vendor inside your organization because they are qualified, you tell them, no, I'm not going to list you as a vendor unless you pay me some money. So you are actually asking, demanding for payment for you to do the proper job that you need to do, which is completely not acceptable. Now, all these schemes, we always, in most of our investigation as a fraud examiner, we always focus on, we need to catch the guys who are taking the bribes. We need to catch the guys who are actually accepting all these tips and involved in conflict of interest. But what is interesting, when we look at it from legal standpoint, they say it's from legal standpoint, it's more the responsibility of the person who will pay rather than the person who will take. So for us as an organization, we want to catch our employees who are taking the bribes. But from legal perspective, and even from ethical perspective, it's all about the guy who will pay the money, because he is giving the incentives for someone to do these kind of schemes. So what we need to do, we need to create regulations in our government to not only go after the guys who are receiving the bribes, but we need to go after the guys who are paying the bribes. And this is what we can see happen in the last 20 years. In the last 20 years, you can see so many regulations happen in Europe and in Asia and in US, that they are not only gonna go after the organization who accepted the bribes, but they are gonna go over the individuals plus the organization. Look how interesting, not only the organization, the individual plus the organization who are giving the bribes to facilitate this inside our economy, which is interesting. Now, when someone will speak to me about, corruption, and they tell me, yeah, is corruption a serious issue? Is it actually happening a lot? I always remember the story. So the story is very interesting. They say one guy, he died, and he went to heaven. And when he went to heaven, the angels, they were giving him a tour in heaven. So he was doing a tour. Then he came to a very large wall. So he asked the angels, what is this wall? They told him, can you see all the clocks on the wall? He said, yes. They told him, these clocks, they are actually working based on the speed of fraud and corruption and bribery on earth. So he said, wow, all these clocks? They said, yes, there is a lot of fraud and corruption and bribery and illegal acts happening on earth. Then he noticed one of them, it's really speeding. So he asked him, what about this clock that's speeding? What's going on with it? They say, oh, this one is related to corruption. And can you see how it's on the edge of the wall? He said, yes. Why you have it on the edge of the wall? He said, this is the clock that's creating all the air conditioning for heaven. Because corruption on earth is happening day and night. And this is exactly what we speak when we speak about corruption. Corruption is happening massively. We can see the report of ACFE, the report to the nation, saying that corruption in small and big organization, if you see the report, in small and big organization, is happening massively. Number one scheme happening inside organization, large and small, is corruption. And it's happening more frequently. Massive amount of fraud is happening. Now, the big question, why fraud is increasing and fraud is happening more and more? Because it's all about the individuals inside the organization who are afraid to report these cases. They are saying, I can see fraud inside the organization, I report it. But when I see corruption, should I report it? Because corruption is, like, for example, I see someone stealing some items or manipulating record, I report it, this is a fraud. But I see one of our staff bribing a customer, I say, this is good, we are getting business. I see one of our managers going and bribing someone in government for them not to give us fine. Well, this is good for business, so in that way we can survive in the current economy we are in. So this is why the idea inside the mind of the individuals inside the organization, that fraud is bad, corruption, as long as it's good for business, we are going to keep it. And this is the challenge when we are dealing with the issues related to corruption, that individuals will think corruption is okay. And this is why they decided not to report it. And look what Albert Einstein said. He said, the world will not be destroyed by those who are doing evil, who are doing corruption, but by those who are watching them and doing nothing. So the big question here, when you see someone inside the organization doing corruption, should we stop these individuals from doing corruption, or should we say, no, this is good for business? Why should we stop them? This is actually good, it's generating business for us. Sometimes we don't understand that when actually we are involved in cases related to fraud and corruption, it's beyond what we are looking at. It's something much, much more than just someone doing bribery and corruption. It can be issue related to our organization and sometimes our job. Maybe because of the fraud that happened in the organization, we are going to lose. So let's watch this video.
Hey. Oh, thank you.
So, tell me everything. How's work? Still loving life as managing director of London's most talked about new startup?
Oh, you know how it is. The usual stuff. It's a juggling act and there's still loads to do, but 4 months in, we're getting there.
I should apply for a job working for you. The way things are going at mine, it looks like I'm gonna need a new one.
What? Things not going well right now? Last time I saw you, you were doing great.
Yeah, I am. Well, I was.
What do you mean? What's going on?
We're being investigated for bribery.
What? How did this happen?
One of the senior management team. He was paying a client to win business, let's just say unofficially. Apparently he's been doing it for years. No one knew, of course. But now the whole thing's come to light and an investigation has been triggered.
But if the guy's been caught and the rest of the company weren't aware of it, surely you're all in the clear.
No, apparently not. I asked one of our solicitors about it at five-a-side the other night. The fact that we didn't appear to know is part of the problem.
But if you didn't know about it, how can you stop it?
It's about the company being able to prove that they've done absolutely everything to stop this kind of thing from happening. It's such a mess.
What happens now?
It's bad news for everyone. That means big fines, even prison sentences, and there's a real possibility that the company will not survive. The thing is, this investigation is just the start. The disruption is huge. They're even going through past contracts. I've got an interview with the police soon.
What?
I mean, not just me, obviously. All the senior managers have. It must be costing the company an absolute fortune. All the time trying to make sure that it doesn't leak out to our competitors or the press. I just can't believe it, really. Charlotte, protect yourself. You need to look into the risks within your company and put preventative measures in place.
I had no idea this could happen.
And this is what we need to look at when we are looking at fraud and corruption. Fraud, when it will happen inside the organization, maybe it will only affect your organization. But when we are speaking about corruption, Maybe you are going to have legal issue with the government. Maybe you are going to have a big issue related to your reputation. Maybe your customers, your vendor, your employees, they are going to be affected. And even if nothing happened, if you leave your organization and you try to work for another organization, they are going to say, oh, you are in that organization that they have culture of corruption. We don't want to hire you today. And this is big challenge. So someone will say, so what can we do to actually fight corruption? Is corruption a serious issue? Is this going to affect us? Some individuals, they say, no, corruption is good. They say corruption will oil the wheels of the commerce. The meaning, the more corruption, the better is the economy. So is this real? They say yes, because think about it. For the government to approve a project, it will take around 6 months. But if we bribe someone, in 1 month it's approved. For us to actually get the vendor to win this contract, it will take 3 months. But if we bribe someone, in 1 week it's approved. So why don't we actually live in our economy based on this culture of corruption, where everyone is giving someone money and making things facilitated quickly? And they say, let's examine and discuss if corruption is good for the economy. So because the argument of these individuals that look at this country who are corrupted, business transactions are faster. So they went and they examined the top countries that they have corruption and examined the top countries that don't have corruption. And they discovered the following based on the perception index. So the index said that these countries that they have less corruption, they are top in their economy, which is all these countries in Denmark and Norway and all these countries who are not doing any kind of corruption, or they have a very low corruption percentage. But the countries who have massive number of corruption, their economy is really disaster. And this is the main challenge. When we are speaking about corruption, corruption is gonna destroy your economy. So let's watch this video to explain to us when we are looking at the different countries all over the world, how this perception index will show you exactly which countries are corrupted and which country is not, and how these countries with less corruption, their economy is better. Not only their economy, they have much better services for their customers. Why? Because all this money is not stolen by individuals in the government. So the government, they have more money to allocate it for education, for public service. And at the same time, in most of the corrupted countries, these individuals who will steal the money from the government or from the people of the country, they take the money and they put it outside in different countries. This is why when they did a survey in Africa and they asked the youth in Africa, do you understand that there's corruption in your countries? They said, yes, we understand there's corruption in our country. They say, okay, are you upset about it? They said, yes. They said, but why you are upset about it? They said, we are not upset that there's corruption. We know there's corruption and it's very hard to stop. We are upset that this money that these individuals are stealing, they are not keeping it in the country by building projects or hotels or restaurants or any business. They are taking the money and they are sending it to Europe. At least if they do corruption and they keep the money inside, we will have a job. And this is the major challenge when we are looking at it. So let's see exactly these countries and let's see what kind of economy will happen when you have more corruption or less corruption.
The 2018 Corruption Perceptions Index, or the CPI, reveals that most countries are failing to fight corruption. Alarmingly, this year's results also show that corruption is contributing to a crisis of democracy around the world. The CPI measures levels of corruption in the public sector in 180 countries and territories around the world using a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is highly corrupt and 100 is very clean. This year, Denmark and New Zealand score the highest, while South Sudan, Syria, and Somalia score the lowest. The truth is that no country gets a perfect score. Since 2012, only 20 countries significantly improved their scores, while 16 countries significantly decreased. More troubling, the majority of countries have seen little or no progress. The global average score this year is 43 out of 100, well below halfway. Our analysis shows a disturbing connection between public sector corruption and a weakening of democratic institutions and norms. In the last few years, several countries have also seen a rise of political candidates running on a populist platform who seek to undermine democratic institutions and push anti-democratic agendas. These politicians often use corruption scandals and public disillusionment to win power. No matter where you are in the world, having strong, independent institutions, freedom of the press, and engaged citizens is the most sustainable way to combat corruption, despite what some populist leaders might claim. Support our fight and help us stop corruption. For more information, visit transparency.org/CPI 2018.
So we discovered that actually corruption is not good for the economy. So someone will say, so Iyad, what can we do for us to fight corruption? What is the proper approach for us to do? Some political parties, they say, we need to boil the ocean. Can you see the ocean behind me? All this corruption, let's boil the ocean. So some individuals inside the government, they come with this unbelievable strategy. We need to kill the corruption. We need to stop the corruption. We need to eliminate corruption. Relax. Like they say, you can't boil the ocean. It's not the right strategy for you to stop all the corruption. And let me tell you about something that's very interesting. Most of these political parties that they came in countries where they have corruption and they say, we need to stop corruption. In a very short time, they got out of power. Why? Because the whole country is in corruption. You can't in one day stop corruption. What you need to do, you need to follow the proper technique. The proper technique, you need to go and stop corruption step by step. You need to implement the policy. You need to find the individuals who are causing the 10%, like we discussed, this 10% who are doing massive corruption, and try to eliminate them out. You need to go figure out how can you change the culture? How can you create incentives? So in one country, they discovered that the police officers, they are taking bribes. So what they decided to do, rather than allowing them to take a bribe, they say, listen, you are a police officer, you should not take a bribe. Now, we are gonna give you a award. He said, award? Based on what? He said, every time someone will offer you bribe and you report him, so we take action against the person who's offering you bribe, you get a reward. So now the officer is so happy. Rather than he's taking the bribe from the guy and he's putting it in his pocket and doing something illegal, he says, easy. If someone offered me bribe, I will report him and I will get my reward. And in that way, maybe this is the proper approach for us to reward individuals who are refusing to get bribe. So that will motivate them to actually not only not accept a bribe, say sorry, no, but reward these individuals who are causing the disaster in our economy. And this is maybe the proper approach when we are dealing with issues related to corruption. But when we are speaking about these issues related to corruption, we need to understand that we need to have the proper compliance program, the proper system. This is why they created something called ISO 37001, which is related to how can organizations implement anti-bribery management system inside their hierarchy by having the proper anti-bribery and anti-corruption policy, by ensuring that they are doing monitoring, creating the proper education, ensuring that their staff are actually aware of what's considered bribery, what is not. By implementing something like that, we will ensure that at least we have the proper compliance program inside our organization. And I can see so many organizations all over the world decided to go with that approach. You say, yeah, so can we get certification for that? Yes. Once you implement that system, you can get this ISO to show who? To show your customers, to show the vendors, to show the government officers that actually your organization have the proper controls and compliance program in place. One of the early organizations in the world that they implemented this is the Malaysian airport. Because in Malaysia, they want to show anyone visiting the Malaysian airport from any Asian country, you can't come to our immigration officers and give them money inside your passport for you to enter the country if you don't have the proper visa. You can't go and give some money to the guy working in the customs to bring illegal stuff to the country. So they were the first one to implement this ISO anti-bribery management system, and even have a big announcement. When you enter the airport, they say, we fight fraud, we fight corruption, which is a good approach when we are thinking about implementing something like that. Now, when we are speaking about corruption, we need to understand that sometimes the main reason why corruption is happening, someone will say, yeah, what's the main reason? They say the main reason is banks. You say, wait, the main reason why corruption is happening is banks? Yes, because think about it. These individuals who are taking the bribes, what they are going to do with their bribes? They are going to take their bribes and they are going to insert them in the financial system. They can't just keep them in their house. And we discovered over the last 20 years that the main reason why we couldn't uncover these guys who are doing fraud and corruption is because they took the money and they inserted in the banks, and the bank said, okay, just don't say tell anyone. So they have someone working in the bank that understood the system and make the money go inside. Or the bank understood that this guy is a politically exposed person. What's the meaning politically exposed person? He's working in the government. So how come we open an account for him and we allow millions to enter and we didn't ask where is the money coming from? Or he's a good customer. We don't want to bother him. We want to make commission out of him. We want to make money from him. So this is the biggest issue. When banks are not asking questions about the money entering from issues related to bribery and corruption, this can be disaster. You say, yeah, this happened before? Is this an issue? Yes, look what happened here. One of the guys, in UAE, he is working in a bank, and because he is Pakistani, and the guy who is opening the account as a businessman from Pakistan, he was actually a political person taking bribe, and he's channeling the bribes to that bank for millions. So how can we ensure in our banks we have the proper controls so no one can move the money around? In UAE exchange, someone was able to move money, launder money from one country to one country for more than 900 million US dollars. So how come this money moved? Where are these guys who should actually verify, check? They received some money or what happened? And this is always the challenge. When we are looking at issues related to bribery and corruption, we need to understand that banks, financial institutions, they play a very important role in ensuring that the controls are in place. But sometimes the individuals who are doing money laundering and the individuals who are doing bribery, they work together. Wow, they are a good team. This is why we say today we are living in a world where we call it organized crimes. They are operating in the proper way. So let me give you an example. How today someone can go and give a bribe to someone working in the government in China and no one will ask questions. They do it in the following way. They will tell this guy working in the government, you go to Macau and you bring with you $10,000 from your own money. So the guy will say, okay, he will fly to Macau, he will book a hotel for himself, and he will bring $10,000. Great. Now what will happen? He will go to the casino to gamble, and they will send one guy from our company who will sit with him on the same table for blackjack. Then he will tell him, now is the time. The guy will give 10,000, the other guy will put $500,000 on the table, and it's blackjack, congratulations. Now, legally, the person from the government was lucky enough to win the money from blackjack there. And now he can go and report the money in the casino that he won the money. Then he can transfer the money legally to his bank, showing that this is actually money from his luck playing in the casino, and then he will pay the taxes on it to the government in China, and he will keep the money, and no one can say that he took bribe. And this is exactly what will happen. And this is exactly the challenge, that now we can see individuals are coming up with a new creative way of doing bribery, where no one is going to ask them question where you got this money from. And this is the challenge when we are dealing with cases related to bribery and corruption. Another way for us to actually facilitate all these payments, we create all these shell companies. And we say, oh, well, I have a business operating in another country and I'm making the money from that business, and this is how the money coming. But who's actually depositing the money in this shell company outside is the person who's giving you bribe. And there are thousands of schemes when we are looking at these schemes related to bribery and corruption. And in government, they are having a hard time because these guys are reinventing the ways how these schemes are going to be run, how they are going to do more of this bribery and corruption. Now, what we need to do inside our organization, they say we can't actually boil the ocean. But the big question here, and let me ask this question and you can answer in the chat. If one of our employees is bribing someone in government, who is responsible? Is the individual bribing the person in the government? Look, listen, if he's bribing without our knowledge, So in that way, we told him, for you to get business in this new country, you are not allowed to bribe someone in government. But he ignored our rules and regulation, and he decided to bribe someone in government to get business. Or let's say we hired third party, and our third party operating in that country, and he is actually going and bribing someone in government. So now the question to you, who do you think is responsible for that act? Is it the individual or the organization? You can write in the chat and tell me what do you think. So let me see in the chat. What do you think? Who's responsible? Is it the organization? Okay, some individuals, they are saying both they are responsible. Some individuals, they are saying no, it's the organization responsible. None of you are saying he is responsible. Oh, we have one, maybe the individual is responsible. And this is the biggest challenge that organizations are facing today. Because when government will discover that your employee bribed someone in government, they want to know, should we go after the individual or should we go after the organization? And based on what? And there is a very interesting case to explain this scenario. This is the case that happened related to Morgan Stanley. So what happened with Morgan Stanley? They said this is the first case ever where actually the Department of Justice in US, they decided not to take action against Morgan Stanley, even that their executive manager in China, he was bribing government officers to get money. They said, why? What happened? They said, because Morgan Stanley implemented the proper controls. Morgan Stanley, he said, we are going to have the proper rules and regulations, and we are going to have the proper compliance program, and we are going to inform everyone that you are not allowed to bribe someone working in government. Number one. Number two, we are going to do monitoring, and we are going to send our staff to conduct an audit to ensure no one is giving any money or entertainment to someone working in the government in China, and there is no any facilitation happening. Good. And number three, we are going to have the proper records and the proper accounting system. So in that way, any money is going outside the organization, we know the purpose for it. And number four, we are going to give a training to our staff and explain to them that this is not acceptable. So after doing all that, still the executive manager decided to bribe someone in government, ignoring all that. And he didn't bribe from money from the organization, he used his own money. So based on that, and plus Morgan Stanley didn't hide this information when they discovered that, they went and they reported to the government. They say, listen, we have a case of someone bribing someone in China, which is against the law. So in that way, we just want you as a government to know that this is not acceptable. We have terminated the person and we took the proper action, and we just want to disclose that to you so you know what happened. They say because of all that, because the organization, they have the proper controls, the proper monitoring, the proper training, and the proper reporting, and the proper investigation, and the proper corrective action, the Department of Justice decided not to take any action against them or make them pay fine. And this is where we need to understand in our organization, it's our responsibility as compliance program to ensure that our staff, they are not accepting bribe and they are not receiving bribe. It's not the responsibility of the government to do this. It's not the responsibility of the managers. It's the responsibility of the compliance program plus the board of directors to ensure we have the proper compliance procedures and they are being followed. Monitoring is happening on continuous basis. But the issue sometimes, what will happen, that sometimes when you see inside an organization that this is the culture of corruption, this is how things are done, you can't go against the system. And this is what we can see, that they say bad system will be a good person at any time. So what if you go to an organization and you are in the compliance department and you discover that this is the culture inside the organization? They say it's okay, this is acceptable, not a big deal with this. How can you go and change the culture? And this is today is the biggest challenge. Look, for example, at what happened in Wirecard. Wirecard, they said, for us, we are going to switch to make the compliance officer the CEO of the organization. Weird. Why we are going to make the compliance officer the CEO of the organization? They say because we need to create a culture of compliance. Really? So they discovered that the only way for us to make sure compliance is happening is by ensuring that the CEO is the compliance officer, which is interesting. But even with that, it's not going to happen because they have an illusion of compliance. This is what they say. They are just only stamping everything. Yes, compliance, but there is no actual compliance happening. So when we are looking at this culture inside the organization, we need to see who is influencing this culture. They say the guys who are influencing these cultures are the guys on the top of the organization. We call these guys are the CEO. You know what CEO stands for, right? Anyone knows what CEO stands for? CEO? You can write it in the chat. Let me see if anyone got it right. CEO? Yes, you got it right. Yes. It's cheat everyone. This is what CEO, right? In so many organizations, these are the CEOs. They are the guys on top who's manipulating the reports to the banks, manipulating the reports to the board of directors, manipulating the reports to external auditors, manipulating the business result to the executives. They are manipulating everything for to get their bonuses and to keep their job. They are doing merger and acquisition with other organizations to increase their responsibility so they earn more money. They are increasing the cost on the customers so they can generate more money. They are cheating vendors by not paying them. And unfortunately, they are trying to facilitate all that inside the organization. I'm not speaking this happened inside your organization. I'm speaking this is happening inside corrupted organization where fraud is happening day and night. And these guys on top who are in control, they can do that. But someone will ask, what is the main reason why actually the CEO, he is doing all that inside the organization? We say because he got the control. The minute he got the control and power, he can do everything. You say, but wait, we have board of directors and we have a chairman and we have audit committee. Not in all the organization. Remember what happened in this organization related to Robert Maxwell? Robert Maxwell, when he died, unfortunately, they discovered that his organization, Maxwell Communication, they have 2 billion in assets and 4 billion in liability. What? How come 2 billion in assets and 4 billion in liabilities? So they are negative 2 billion. What? How can you run an organization where you are negative 2 billion? They discovered this was possible because he was the chairman and he was the CEO at the same time. So he, as a chairman, he's controlling the board of directors. And as a CEO, he's controlling the operation. And we can see exactly what happened later with his daughter and all the scandals that happened. Like daughter, like father. Huh? So this is where we can see exactly the big issues when we are speaking about a culture of corruption, where everyone is doing corruption inside that organization. So someone will say, but yeah, what about these small level employees? They are not going to blow the whistle? And we discover in so many organizations, yes, these individuals who are in the bottom, who are not getting anything from this, they say, how come all these executives are making money? We are not making here so much money. How about I can go and blow the whistle? And why they have incentives to go and blow the whistle? Because in some countries like US, if you go and blow the whistle, you are going to get reward. They say that the American government is paying hundreds of millions annually to individuals who are coming and blowing the whistle on the cases related to fraud and corruption. So what can we do inside our organization if we are corrupted organization to ensure that these individuals are not going to blow the whistle? Any idea you can tell me? You can tell me in the chat what ideas you can come up with. How can we stop these individuals from reporting? What can we do to make sure they are not gonna go, not only report to our hotline, because our hotline is nothing, we can listen to it, but reporting to the government about the bribes we are paying, about all these illegal activities we are doing. What do you think? Any ideas, any creative ideas you can come up with? They say corrupt them, and unfortunately, they are not corrupted. So you can't say, okay, I'm gonna give you some bribes. They say, no, we are proud of ourselves. We don't accept the bribe. You are corrupted. Remember, we say there is always these 10%. They will never be corrupted. 10%. They are not going to be corrupted. You can't make them part of your culture. And these are the dangerous individuals who are going to go and blow the whistle. And we can see them. You open the news and you see all the time. These are the guys who sometimes died because they were trying to tell the truth. So what we need to do? Create a protection program for them? No. You are in the wrong idea, Ihab. Here we are saying, how can we make them part of our culture without corrupting them? When we have a solution for you, look what Harvard Business Review discovered. They did research about the organization that they were doing corruption. And they discovered that these organizations who are doing corruptions, for them to stop employees from reporting this fraud and corruption to the government, told them, listen, we are going to give you incentives based on the value of the stock. So imagine if I'm an employee working inside the organization and my organization said, we are going to give you by the end of the year money based on the value of the stock. So I say, wow, great. So now I look at the value of the stock is going up. Then I see corruption. Then I think, if I go and I report the corruption, what's going to happen to the value of the stock? Oh, the value of the stock is going to go down because our organization will be investigated. So I will lose my bonus. Listen, I'm not involved in the corruption. I'm an honest person. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close my eyes, close my mouth, and close my ears and say there's nothing happening. And in that way, let them do whatever they do. At the end of the day, I will get my bonuses, but I am honest. I didn't actually cheat or lie or do any corruption. And this is the technique they discovered many of these organizations they use to make these employees and managers close their mouth and not say anything, which is a very interesting technique. So we can see what they are doing to stop these individuals who are doing corruption inside the organization. Now we need to understand how corruption is happening all over the world, because corruption is differently when we look at the Middle East, when we look at Europe, and when we look at Asia. They say in Europe or US, the corruption is happening on top of the table. Meaning someone will come to someone working in government or someone working in private sector. He said, let's shake hands, and here is the money on top of the table. You do this for me. As simple as that. It's a business dealing, business transaction. There is no shame. Here is the money, and here how we are going to do it. Done, simple. And in some ways, sometimes it's regulated even. You go give donation to someone working in the government. Listen, I'm not saying this is illegal. This is legal. This is how the government is running. You give a donation to someone working in government, and this person, once he is in power, he will help you in implementing regulations related to your business. So this is completely okay. Or you give donation to universities who are creating research, so they will create research supporting your organization, so you can take it to the regulators and you say, look, based on the research, we need to change the law, which is completely how it's done. It's on top of the table. But what will happen when we are speaking about Asia? They say the corruption in Asia is happening under the table. The individuals, they are not giving the corruption on top of the table, but under the table. How this is happening in Asia? They say it is happening in a very interesting way. Let's see how it's happening in Asia. So we can see the individuals who are doing fraud and corruption in Asia, they are doing it under the table. Now, what about Middle East? How we are doing it in the Middle East? They say in Middle East, we have more innovative approach. It's not on top of the table. It's not under the table. It's without table. The meaning, we accept these bribes and we do this corruption where we don't indicate that we are doing anything illegal. And this is exactly what happened. Individuals are willing to do anything. They are willing to go to the extreme for them to achieve success. But look what they say. They say, I would rather to fail with honor than to succeed with a fraud. And this is, it's all about us. Do we have the proper understanding that the most important thing for us is it success? Or the most important thing for us is to actually achieve everything while you are following the rules and regulations? Having the proper culture inside your organization, where your employees understand it's not only about achieving the goals of the organization, making the bonuses, achieving money, but also about being ethical, achieving everything while we are following rules and regulation. They say there is no shortcut for success, but they say there is always secret. Have you heard of this? They say always there is a key for success. Do you believe in that? There's always key for success? And all of us, we are going day and night trying to find this key. But unfortunately, they say the minute you will find that key, the door lock will change. So you need to find another key. And this is a reality. So we always need to work daily to be able to achieve our goals while we are following the rules and regulations, and we are not trying to manipulate the system by taking advantage of it or saying it's okay, this is what needs to be done. And this is the right culture that we need to create in our organization to ensure that we fight fraud and corruption and we achieve our goals and make our customers, vendor, and stakeholders happy. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. I hope that it was a really good introduction for you to see exactly how can we find fraud. But before I go, there's a very important concept that I want to leave you with. Because all of you are saying, yeah, so how can we find corruption? And I have 1 minute left in my webinar to explain to you. For you, it's not enough for you to fight corruption, you need to investigate corruption. And how can you investigate corruption? They say to investigate corruption, we have 3 approaches. Approach number 1, you need to get a witness who can come and testify that he saw one of your employees accepting bribe or involved in conflict of interest. And this is the best way, the best case you can win, to get the weakest link in the corruption group to come and tell you, the whistleblower. But sometimes it's hard for us to do that. So what is the second approach? The second approach, if we know someone is corrupted, we go work with the law enforcement, the government, or the proper authority inside the country, and we secretly catch him accepting bribe. So we send him someone from government, or we send him someone from our organization, and he will give the bribe. And in that way, we catch him in reality. But in some time, the corruption happened 5 years ago. So we are not going to be able to catch him now. He's not doing corruption anymore. He is a good man now. So what we need to do, always they say, follow the money. Min ayna laka hadha? Where you got the money from? Follow the money, you will see the fraud and corruption that he's doing. And these are the 3 approaches that we use to go after individuals who are involved in corruption and bribery. So go in the real world and fight them, catch them, and help us make our economy much better and our countries free from fraud and corruption. Thank you very much.